New York, 8.3 million inhabitants, 32,000 streets, 5 boroughs, 3 rivers, all merging into one city, a living, breathing organism unlike any other on Earth. What's even more remarkable is this: everything that defines New York today, its legendary skyline, its unmatched cultural energy, its unrelenting rhythm, is all the result of transformation. Because, astonishingly, much of what makes New York so iconic simply didn't exist even a century ago. This is the story of how a small colonial outpost, born from European ambition, evolved into the world's most famous metropolis through war, immigration, innovation, and reinvention. This is how New York became the world's greatest city. You're watching Historia Memories. Like, subscribe and comment The Land Before the City. Long before the roar of traffic and the glow of skyscrapers, the land that would one day become New York City was untouched wilderness, dense forests, wide rivers, and rich marshlands teeming with wildlife. For thousands of years, this region was home to Algonquian-speaking Native American tribes, chief among them, the Lenape people. They lived in balance with the land, fishing the rivers, hunting the forests, and cultivating corn, beans, and squash. For nearly 8,000 years, the Lenape thrived until the first European sails appeared on the horizon. The age of exploration, the 16th century, marked the dawn of European exploration in the Americas. Nations like Spain, France, and the Netherlands sent expeditions across the Atlantic, each in search of new trade routes, resources, and glory. In 1524, an Italian navigator named Giovanni de Verrazzano, sailing under the flag of France, became the first European to set eyes on what would later become New York Harbor. He claimed the area for France, but no French colony followed. The untouched land would remain undisturbed for almost 100 years more. That is, until the Dutch arrived. The Dutch arrive, a colony called New Netherland, in 1609. The English explorer Henry Hudson, employed by the Dutch East India Company, embarked on a mission to find a fabled Northwest Passage, a sea route connecting the Atlantic to the Pacific. Hudson never found the passage, but he discovered something else: a wide, majestic river that stretched deep into the continent. Today, it bears his name, the Hudson River. Hudson claimed the surrounding land for the Dutch Republic, unknowingly laying the foundations for what would one day become New York City. By the 1610s and 1620s, Dutch traders had established small posts along the Hudson River and across the coast. Their focus was simple fur trade. Beaver pelts from North America were among the most valuable commodities in Europe at the time, and Dutch merchants saw an opportunity to profit. In 1624, the Dutch West India Company sent its first group of colonists to the region known as New Netherland. They established settlements along the Hudson and on nearby islands. One small group landed at the southern tip of Manhattan Island and built a fort to protect their trade ships. That fort was called Fort Amsterdam, and around it, a settlement began to form. That settlement was New Amsterdam. With its founding in 1625, the seeds of modern New York City were planted. A note from the present: the pressure behind creation. Before we continue, let's take a brief pause. Creating historical content like this, from hours of research to scripting, editing, and animating, can be rewarding, but also incredibly demanding. The constant push to meet deadlines, stay creative, and ensure historical accuracy can take a real toll on mental health. That's why we at Historia Memories understand the importance of taking care of our minds as much as we do our work. And that's why we appreciate our partner, BetterHelp, for supporting creators like us. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that connects you with certified therapists, all from the comfort of your home. Whether through phone, chat, or video sessions, it's therapy that fits your lifestyle. If you'd like to start prioritizing your mental well-being, visit BetterHelp's for a special discount on your first month of therapy. Because, just like New York's evolution, taking care of yourself starts with building strong foundations. Let's return to the story of a city that never stops evolving. The Dutch experiment. In 1626, the Dutch Director General of New Netherland, Peter Minuit, purchased Manhattan Island from the local Lenape people for 60 guilders, roughly $1,000 in today's money. It was a deal that would go down in legend, though historians still debate the fairness and meaning behind it. Nevertheless, it gave the Dutch a formal claim to their new settlement. Over the next 3 decades, New Amsterdam grew steadily. Its streets were filled with merchants, craftsmen, and sailors, a mix of nationalities that reflected the Netherlands' own reputation for tolerance and trade. However, not everything was peaceful. By the 1650s, Director General Peter Stuyvesant, known for his wooden leg and fiery temper, imposed strict laws. He banned Quakers, Jews, and Lutherans from worshipping freely, and tried to control trade and alcohol sales. These heavy-handed policies angered settlers who had come to the New World seeking freedom. The Dutch West India Company, realizing Stuyvesant's harshness was stifling the colony's growth, began to consider reforms. But fate had other plans. The English takeover at this time. The Netherlands and England were bitter rivals to naval powers fighting for control of global trade. Their competition led to the Anglo-Dutch Wars, a series of bloody sea conflicts fought between 1652 and 1673. During this turbulent era, New Amsterdam found itself vulnerable. In 1653, the colonists built a wooden defensive wall on the northern edge of the town, the very same wall that would later give Wall Street its name. But even that wall couldn't save them. In 1664, an English fleet arrived in New York Harbor, demanding the Dutch surrender. Stuyvesant, realizing he had no reinforcements and little public support, reluctantly capitulated without firing a shot. The English took control, renaming Fort Amsterdam as Fort James and rechristening the entire colony New York. In honor of James, Duke of York, the brother of King Charles II, and later King James II himself. The Dutch briefly retook the city in 1673, but it was returned to English hands just a year later under the Treaty of Westminster. New Amsterdam was gone. New York was born. The English era and the seeds of revolution under English rule. New York flourished. Immigrants from across Europe poured in, bringing skills, ideas, and ambitions. The city's port bustled with trade, and its population swelled. But the city also inherited one of the darkest legacies of European colonization's slavery. By the 1740s, 1 in 5 New Yorkers was enslaved. The city became one of the largest slaveholding communities in the northern colonies. The docks that powered New York's economy were built, in part, by enslaved hands. Yet amid these injustices, New York also became a place of ideas and resistance. In the 1760s, tensions grew between the colonies and the British Crown. New York became a hub for revolutionary thought. The Sons of Liberty, a secret group opposing British taxation, organized protests here. In 1765, the Stamp Act Congress met in New York, uniting colonies against unjust taxes. What began as dissent would soon ignite a revolution. When the American Revolutionary War broke out in 1775, New York was one of its central battlegrounds. In 1776, George Washington and the Continental Army suffered a major defeat at the Battle of Long Island, forcing a retreat across the East River. New York fell to the British and would remain under occupation for the rest of the war. For nearly 7 years, the city became the British military's North American headquarters. But when the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783, ending the war, British troops withdrew and New York celebrated its liberation. The city that had endured so much was now a symbol of freedom and renewal. A new nation's first capital in 1785. New York City was chosen as the first capital of the newly independent United States. It was here on April 30th, 1789, at Federal Hall on Wall Street, that George Washington took the oath of office as the nation's first president. It was here that the first Congress convened. It was here that the Bill of Rights was drafted. For a brief moment, New York stood at the very center of the American experiment. And as the 19th century dawned, the city was poised to grow beyond anyone's imagination. The birth of a modern city by the early 1800s, New York was already a bustling hub of commerce and culture. The Bank of New York, founded by Alexander Hamilton in 1784, and the New York Stock Exchange, established in 1792, turned Wall Street into the beating heart of American finance. But New York's destiny as the nation's premier port was sealed with a single engineering triumph: the Erie Canal, completed in 1825. The canal linked the Great Lakes with the Hudson River and, in turn, the Atlantic Ocean. This artificial waterway transformed New York into the main gateway for goods and immigrants, flowing in and out of the young United States. Almost overnight, the city outpaced rivals like Boston and Philadelphia. Ships from every continent crowded its harbors, and warehouses lined the waterfront from the Battery to Brooklyn. New York had become the front door to America. The immigrant city, the 19th century, brought wave after wave of new arrivals. Between 1820 and 1880, more than 10 million immigrants passed through New York Harbor. They came from Ireland, Italy, Germany, and Eastern Europe, and later from China and beyond, fleeing famine, persecution, and poverty. They arrived with little more than hope and a dream of starting over. The city's population exploded from 60,000 in 1800 to over 500,000 by 1850, and then into the millions by the century's end. Neighborhoods like the Lower East Side, Chinatown, and Little Italy became living mosaics of languages, foods, and traditions. New York became the melting pot of the world, a place where anyone from anywhere could build a life. But the dream came with a cost. Poverty, disease, and fire overcrowding turned the Lower East Side into one of the most densely populated places on Earth. Tenement buildings stacked families in dark, airless rooms. Streets overflowed with sewage, and clean water was scarce. Epidemics of cholera and yellow fever swept through the city throughout the 1830s and 1840s. The Great Fire of 1835 destroyed 50 acres of Lower Manhattan, wiping out hundreds of homes and businesses. Still, New York rebuilt it. But as the city grew richer, it also grew rougher. Entire neighborhoods, 5 Points, Hell's Kitchen, the Bowery, became infamous for gang violence, theft, and poverty. Groups like the Dead Rabbits and the Bowery Boys ruled the streets. Immortalized later in films like Gangs of New York. The city was thriving, but it was also teetering on chaos. A nation divided. The Civil War years. When the American Civil War erupted in 1861, New York found itself deeply divided. Though loyal to the Union, many New Yorkers had business ties with the South, especially through cotton and shipping. Then came the Conscription Act of 1863, forcing men to fight in the Union Army unless they could pay $300 to hire a substitute for the city's poor immigrants. That was an impossible sum. The result was one of the darkest chapters in New York's history, the draft riots of 1863. For 5 days, mobs tore through the streets, looting stores, attacking police, and targeting black citizens in a wave of racial violence. The U.S. Army was eventually called in to restore order. By the time peace returned, over 100 people were dead. It was a sobering reminder of how fragile the social fabric could be, and yet, from these ashes, New York would soon reinvent itself again. A cultural renaissance after the war, New York entered a period of extraordinary growth and creativity. Central Park, opened in 1858, offered an oasis of green amid the gray of the industrial city. Theaters along Broadway flourished, while Carnegie Hall became a temple of music. Great institutions rose from the city's ambition. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, 1870. The American Museum of Natural History, 1869. And the New York Public Library, 1895 monuments, not just to wealth, but to knowledge and civic pride. Meanwhile, journalism exploded. Newspapers like the New York Times, Herald, and World became national powerhouses, shaping public opinion and fueling debates across America. By the late 1800s, New York wasn't just the country's financial capital, it was its cultural soul, bridging the boroughs. The city's growth could no longer be contained on Manhattan Island. Bridges became the arteries that connected the expanding metropolis. The Brooklyn Bridge, completed in 1883, was the first steel wire suspension bridge in the world, a marvel of engineering and a symbol of human ambition. Soon came the Williamsburg Bridge, 1903, and the Manhattan Bridge, 1909, binding the boroughs together into one vast urban organism. And in 1898, the city officially unified its 5 boroughs: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island, forming Greater New York. With unity came power. The Statue and the Promise. In 1886, France gifted the United States one of the most recognizable landmarks on the planet, the Statue of Liberty. Standing tall in New York Harbor, Lady Liberty became the symbol of freedom for millions of immigrants arriving by ship. Just a few years later, Ellis Island opened as the main immigration processing center. Between 1892 and 1954, more than 12 million people passed through its halls, each carrying stories, fears, and dreams of a better life. For many, the first thing they saw in America was Liberty's torch shining through the fog, a promise that anything was possible. The city of steel and stone, the turn of the 20th century. Height. Architects and engineers raced to build upward, transforming New York's skyline into a vertical monument to progress. The Woolworth Building 1913, the Chrysler Building 1930, and the Empire State Building 1931, each soared higher than the last. Symbols of confidence and power during the Jazz Age. Meanwhile, underground, another revolution was happening. The New York City subway opened in 1904, connecting City Hall to Harlem and Brooklyn. Suddenly, the city that never slept had no limits. But the good times couldn't last forever. The Great Depression. When the Wall Street crash of 1929 struck, New York became the epicenter of economic despair. Banks collapsed, businesses shuttered, and unemployment soared. Shantytowns, mockingly nicknamed Hoovervilles, after President Herbert Hoover, sprouted across Central Park and the Bronx. Families who had once dreamed of prosperity now struggled just to eat. The city, like the nation, was on its knees. Yet, even then, New York's spirit refused to die. Federal projects during Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal helped rebuild infrastructure and restore faith. And by the time the world plunged into another war, the city was ready to rise again. World War II and the global stage. When the United States entered World War II in 1941, New York became one of America's most critical hubs for production and logistics. Its shipyards built destroyers and transport vessels. Its factories produced aircraft parts, uniforms, and ammunition. Soldiers, by the thousands, boarded ocean liners from New York's piers, bound for the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. When victory finally came in 1945, crowds flooded Times Square, celebrating beneath a blizzard of confetti. The famous photograph of a sailor kissing a nurse captured not just joy, but relief. New York had once again stood at the heart of history. The post-war boom. After the war, much of the world lay in ruins, but New York emerged stronger than ever. In 1952, it became home to the United Nations headquarters, cementing its status as the diplomatic capital of the world. Artists and writers flocked to the city, from the abstract expressionists of Greenwich Village to the jazz legends of Harlem. Wall Street reclaimed its dominance, rivaling London and Tokyo as the center of global finance. New York had become not just an American city, but a world city, a crossroads of art, money, and influence. Crisis and rebirth. Yet, even the greatest cities have dark chapters. The 1970s saw New York nearly collapse under the weight of crime, debt, and decay. The subways were covered in graffiti. Businesses fled to the suburbs, and entire neighborhoods crumbled. For a time, the city that never sleeps seemed to be running out of hope. But New York always finds a way back. The 1980s and 1990s brought revival. Wall Street boomed. The arts flourished, and the skyline transformed once more. The World Trade Center, completed in 1973, symbolized New York's boundless ambition, a pair of towers reaching for the sky. Even after the unimaginable tragedy of September 11th, 2001, New York's resilience shone through. Out of heartbreak came unity. Out of destruction came renewal. The city rebuilt stronger, prouder, and more determined than ever. The spirit of New York. Today, New York stands as a living chronicle of human ambition. From its Dutch colonial roots to its modern skyscrapers, the city has reinvented itself time and time again through fire, flood, war, and crisis. What makes New York the greatest city in the world is not just its skyline or its culture, it's its spirit. The belief that no matter how many times it falls, it will rise again. From the cobblestone streets of New Amsterdam to the gleaming towers of Manhattan, that spirit endures. This is New York. This is resilience. This is history. You've been watching Historia Memories. If you enjoyed this story of the world's greatest city, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us as we bring the past to life, one story at a time.